Great Spirit, Mother, Father, God, the Great Oneness, that which we cannot describe accurately with words, so we try with our hearts. Thank you so much for your guidance, for your love, and for your reminder that we are all pieces of you. I ask today to be an open and willing and loving vessel for divine truth and wisdom, that your love and awareness and teachings be passed on with purity of intention. I ask to leave my expectations behind as well as my ego, so that I can just be here willingly to help bring more love into our consciousness, into the consciousness of my fellow human beings and all the creatures on the planet. I ask to be a source of light and healing and remembrance, not only for myself, but for everybody that I encounter. Thank you. I also ask that any manifestations of your love that wish to come forward to help with this process do so now, including angels that are here with me for this purpose today, any loved ones who have passed over that would like to be here for this, any ascended masters here to teach and expand my consciousness and wisdom. Any spirit guides, any beings of the earth that can help to ground this knowledge within me and within the earth. Any of those that have a loving intention or from the light are welcome to help with this communication today. Thank you. So I'm just gonna listen, try to sit here in openness and receptivity, and just see who may come forward or what words I might hear. I have an idea of what they, meaning the collective divine, want to speak to us about today, but I'm just going to see if I'm going to listen and try to drop that expectation and just see what happens. Okay, so the first thing that I'm seeing is different eggs are being shown to me. And what I mean by that is I'm seeing someone bring forth something that looks like a very, very hard shell, thick, hard, almost like it looks large, almost like a dinosaur egg or an ostrich egg or something like that. And it's kind of dirty and covered in some plant material. Next to that, I see something that looks more like a delicate bird egg with maybe a thinner shell, and then I see what looks more maybe like a fish or amphibian egg with a very soft kind of jelly look to it. So I'm just going to kind of sit here and ask who's here and who's showing me this and maybe why. And so Archangel Gabriel's here, and he is flanked by the spiritual midwives, who are a collective of 5 more female spirits that I work with. And they tend to work with the idea of comparing our creative power of manifestation with the idea of birthing. So our ability as humans to start to grow something within us and then actually give birth to it in the world. So that creative process. So I'm guessing they're here for some reason related to that. And then I see a woman who almost, something about her reminds me of like a nun, like a super compassionate mother, spiritual mother, like a nun, not like a strict, intimidating nun, but this like super loving, maybe like a Mother Teresa type feel to her. And she's just pouring with compassion. And she's just saying, my child, my child. And she's talking to all of us, but each of us individually. She's saying, my child, why do you think you must suffer? It need not be so. And so Gabriel is helping to explain to me that they want to talk about this myth or this lie. He's using a pretty strong word of lie that we've been told, or we've told each other, really. I don't think anyone has told us except ourselves. Certainly we did not get this lie from God or from the Great Mother, or whatever you want to call it, from divine love. He's saying there's this pervasive lie in our culture that spiritual growth and spiritual awakening and spiritual enlightenment has to be a struggle, that it has to be painful, that it has to be hard, that you have to walk through the fire, that people who have spiritual awakenings had to have hit a point of great crisis before you can reach God, before you can reach that oneness and wholeness. And I'm just going to call her Mother Superior. She's saying that this has been passed down from person to person for thousands and thousands of years because of the suffering that was connected to many religious leaders at the time. So, she's showing me the slaughterings that have happened, religious persecution and suffering that has happened, and often from people who were the ones that stood up and spoke out, that became enlightened and wanted to spread the word. So she says there's so many more than just the ones we know. There are just countless people who stood up, who found their own direct connection to the divine love and wanted to spread the word from a place of great purity in their hearts, and they were chopped down, cut short, tortured, suffered. So she's saying it wasn't just Jesus, it wasn't just, the great leaders that we know, and it wasn't just the Catholics or the Jews. It wasn't just any one race. It's happened across races, across religions, across the world. And so she's saying that we our souls saw that suffering happen throughout the different lifetimes we've lived, and attached reaching God or seeking enlightenment with suffering. And it runs very, very deep, and she's showing me her veins. It runs deep in our veins. It's become wound up in our DNA. But she's saying it need not be this way. She's repeating that again. And now, wow. So all of these famous religious leaders are stepping forth, like Muhammad and Jesus and Buddha and Abraham, I think. I'm just hearing these names down, seeing these people step forward, and Joan of Arc, and then all these other martyrs and women who had died for being healers and medicine men and Native Americans. It's like massive. They're just all stepping forward to say that they want to release us of this belief. They're saying just because we suffer does not mean that you must. And that it does us honor. The suffering that we went through can be healed if you only let go of the belief that being close to God or seeking oneness or enlightenment or truth needs to be difficult. They're saying honor what we went through by releasing this belief. And so they go back to the eggs, and they're showing us how we believe that in order to crack out of our shell of illusion, or the shell of our, human form, and get to a higher level of, spiritual living or enlightenment, or that, living within our soul, our light body, that we need to fight through this difficult, heavy shell, and that it must be blood, sweat, and tears, and, that's hard and dangerous. And she's saying, or it can be soft, like the little gelatinous egg, surrounded by, in a cocoon of water and safety, and that you can just kind of wiggle your way out of it. That you can choose how this works. That sometimes we do feel like we need suffering, or we need to be kind of, she's saying, showing me like smacked across the face, like, wake up. That sometimes our soul will call for that because it gets tired of waiting for us to let go of the resistance and welcome our own enlightenment with love. And when they say enlightenment, they're talking about the whole process, right? Enlightenment can go on for lifetimes. It doesn't mean, you can be in enlightenment as like a verb, an ongoing verb. It doesn't have to be like something that happens like a snap and then you're done. So she's talking about the process of enlightenment, that it can be warm and loving and joyful and kind to your soul and your human body. It is so much easier to do it that way. But we often feel like when we have these little moments of joy and enlightenment, that must not be as valid as the ones that people have when they're when they have an enormous life crisis and then they're enlightened. And neither one is more valid than the other. And in some ways, our human brains have sort of shut the door to the kind and loving and beautiful and natural way. And so, our souls are going to find it in whatever way they can. And so if the only door we leave open is the door of suffering, then of course that's the way that we're going to go. Because a soul is not going to pass up this walk toward enlightenment. That's our purpose, is to remember that we are divine love, But if we're able to turn and open the door, if we're able to remember that our shell can be soft and fluid and just flexible and diffuse, then it can be a whole nother experience. It can be beautiful. We can, the spiritual midwives are saying, you can be birthed into, screaming into bright lights and freezing cold and fear, or you can be birthed into warmth and softness and love and joy. And so just try, or just even allow. They don't like the word try as much because that kind of goes more towards the struggling, but just experiment. They're saying it's like, treat it like an adventure, right? Life is a great adventure. So you can treat this path, this journey of enlightenment, ongoing journey, as a pleasure, as an adventure. It doesn't mean there won't be challenges, but sometimes those challenges are what make you feel most alive. Thinking about a hike uphill, your heart is pumping, you get adrenaline going, everything looks crisper and brighter. So those challenges don't have to mean that something is awful or a struggle or difficult. They can mean adventure and growth, but they can be done with love and joy and excitement. And so when you find yourself struggling towards something, when you find yourself maybe comparing your own journey of enlightenment to someone else's and feeling frustrated, or whatever it might be that makes it seem hard, try relaxing around it and imagining yourself to be that kind of soft, gelatinous egg that is becoming something else versus the hard shell that you have to push and kick and squeeze and crack your way through. Try to take some deep breaths and soften around those areas that you find challenging. See if you can stop and say, hey, divine love, God does not want this to be hard. God simply wants me to remember that it is all within me and I am a part of it all. And how can you feel most a part of it all if you see yourself caged inside a hard shell that you must beat your way out of? It's so much easier to be part of it all if you feel your soft edges, if you're moldable, and if you can just gently and smoothly slip out of that boundary or shell, moving on to the next level of your development with excitement, with love, and knowing that you are held and you're never alone. And knowing that if you can do this with joy, you're honoring all of those that have come before us that have suffered for the sake of enlightenment, for the sake of standing up for peace and for spirituality and for truth. Let's take deep breaths around that. So blowing out, placing your hand on your heart and breathing in. And just imagining your edges softening as you blow out. And just letting ease and love be your mantra. And knowing that you will find your way. And I just want to bow in thanks to all of those beings who are so brave that stepped forward today to give us this message. Thank you. I'd like to thank all the beings of light that have been here, especially the Mother Superior that came to speak with us. Thank you. Thank you, Archangel Gabriel, for helping me to communicate this message. Thank you. And thank you, the spiritual midwives, for being here with me once again. And all the teachers, guides, and loved ones. May it be so.